Everyone, I'm Allie. Join me in creating this Simple Tila Rivoli Bezel. It's really simple to do for earrings. You can do it as a necklace as well, making it a little bit further, and really get a lot of use out of a simple count and a small number of beads. So to start out our bezel, we are going to be starting along the back, and we're going to pick up 7 Tilas for our 14mm Rivoli. I'm using the Color Shift 14mm Rivoli along with the metallic brown iris in the Tila bead. You're going to then also have some 11/0s, and I have the Duracoat Opaque Dark Orchid, as well as some 15/0s for the outer edge, which are optional. On our design here, I use some crystals, so you can switch it out as you get to the end. I'm using some 0.006 green beading thread along with a size 11 beading needle. We're going to begin with our opening row. And the opening row is going to be a series of 1 11 and then 1 Tila bead. Like I said, we're going to repeat this 7 times. If you're looking to do this same bezel for a different size crystal, say you want to increase to an 18, or if you do increase to an 18 or a 30mm, make sure to comment below to let people know what your introductory count was. That way it helps them to not have to recreate the wheel if somebody's already doing it. And we learn amazingly from each other in the beading community. So it's always fun to have those comments below. There's 5, 6, and 7. And some people will go in and say, all right, the Tila does have a side. One side's a little flatter, one has a tiny bump. When it comes to this and the Rivoli itself, you're really not going to notice. I have those 7 on, and what I'm going to do is tie them into a simple loop. So I'm going to tie those right here into that simple loop. Once you have that tied, and I'm going to do just 3 little simple knots here, I'm going to go through the first 11/0 as well as that first Tila bead, and then I'm going to get ready to step up. Stepping up means we're going to go from the first hole to the second hole of the Tila, and what that's going to do is put a little bit of thread around the side of the Tila, but by the time you add everything in, you really won't see it. I'm calling this a simple bezel because, like I said, it is incredibly simple. We go from 1 seed bead to 2, and then we progress to 3 as well. So what I'm going to do now is we are going to grab 2 seed beads between each of our Tila beads, catching on to that second hole. So in between here, you're going to grab 1, 2 11/0s and sew into the next Tila bead. Same thing, continuing to go around 2 beads into the next one. So I've connected 3 of those Tilas. You're going to continue on with that pattern of 2 the whole way till we have the whole ring created. Once you go around that whole circle, adding in our 2 seed beads, I'm going to go through the first 2 11/0 seed beads that were added in that group of 2, and now we're going to increase and add 3 seed beads. So we're going again from that 1, 2 to 3. 3 seed beads get added. We're going to skip over that second hole of the Tila, skipping over the Tila completely, and going into the next group of 2 seed beads that we just added in the last step. So see how that's starting to pull it in toward the bezel, and our beautiful Rivoli will sit right in there. From here, 3 more seed beads get added, skip over the Tila, and sew into the next 2 seed beads. So that should be creating a little bit of a dome like that. Again, 3 get added. You're going to repeat this 7 times, going in, and just pull that tail to the bottom, make sure that it's not going to be sewn into your project, and continue on. Once we have all of these groupings of 3 that are hanging out in front of our Tilas, we're going to sew through the original 3 and get ready to go around one more time and put our Rivoli into place. So as we're getting ready to put our last 3 beads in, we're going to grab our Rivoli, and we are going to put it face down in the pendant bezel here. And you can see there's the back. One thing that I wanted to show in the original sample is that you can really make it reversible. So it's up to you whether or not you want to see the stack of the Tila here, that you're seeing just almost a bugle size, and then the full Tila, or if you would want your Rivoli to face forward, almost like a sun where you see that kind of coming out of the middle of the Rivoli. Up to you. I'm going to do this example just like I did the other one, having it face forward so I see more seed beads. From here, I'm putting that 14 millimeter Rivoli in, adding the 3 seed beads, and then I'm going in and sewing through my last set of 2, giving a nice tight pull, and then once again doing that step up, sewing through the 3 beads that I just added, those first 3. Now I could go around and tighten this up and it would actually hold the Rivoli in place, but what I'm going to do to tighten up it even more is add 1 11-0, skip over the 2 seed beads, and just sew back around through all the sets of 3 that we just added, adding 1 11-0 seed bead in between each. So 1 11-0 gets added, then I sew through the 3 seed beads that I just added onto the piece. If you want a little bit of sparkle, bling, want it to have a bezel set look, you could also switch out for a gold or a silver bead to create that little prong look. I'm doing it here with the most simplistic materials to show you how easy it can be. 1 more seed beads gets added, and we're going the whole way around. If you want to do a matching set of earrings, this is where I would suggest going ahead and getting in the end here and finishing off your project. So I'm just going to go back through that first original 3, adding in my last 11-0 seed bead, and then once that last 11-0 seed bead is added, you can see how tight and easily that Rivoli fits into the piece. From here, again, if I did want to add an earring, I would just take my needle and thread, sew into that Tila, come out, do a seed bead wire guard, and you'd have your earring completed. So quick, so easy. What we're going to do now is add an additional row of our Tilas onto the outside, so you're going to need 7 more, and then we're going to increase the number of seed beads that go around the outer edge. From here, once you have that simple Rivoli done, again, what I like to do is take my needle and thread back through. Anytime you're doing a bezel, it's always a good idea to take your needle and thread back through that interior most row. So the row that's closest to the inside of that Rivoli, you'll want to take your needle and thread just right back through and kind of tighten up that line. It's a great idea so that way you don't lose the Rivoli, it doesn't pop out. This one sits in there pretty well, but some of the others you want to reinforce there. And just that second strand or that second pass of thread really does tighten it up and secure it a lot. Once you've got through, or you've gone through rather, all of those beads a secondary time, what we're going to do is basically step down, we'll call it, back into the Tila bead. So I'm going to go back through the 2 beads. So I'm coming out of 3, then I'm stepping down into a set of 2, and then from here I'm stepping down again into my Tila bead. I'm going to square stitch on a Tila, picking up a new Tila, coming out of 1. I'm going to go back into the top of that same Tila that my thread is coming out. So the thread's coming out the bottom, I add a Tila, and I'm sewing into the thread at the top. Sometimes you kind of have to hold that Tila in place, and you want them to sit right next to one another. From here, I'm going to reinforce this 1 more time, going back through the new Tila, and then back through the original Tila. That one is now on and secure. Flipping it over, you can just see a little bit easier. I'm going to go through the next 2 beads that sit there next to the Tila that we're connecting, and then once again come out through the next Tila inline. Do the same thing on the next Tila inline. Add a Tila, so into the top of the Tila your thread is coming out of. Make that sit right on top. Stitch that together 1 more time, back through the Tila you just added, back through the original Tila, and then on to the next. So right now I've gone through and I've done the square stitch, adding on 2 Tilas. I have 5 more to go. So once you have all of your second set of Tilas sitting there, you can see they want to bend down. We're going to make them stick out. You could bend them down, honestly, to make that look a little thicker and then grab onto there. I want mine to come out from the center. So what I'm going to do is I'm back to my original one. I've sewn back through those 2 11-0s, back through the Tila as well, and then stepped up. I'm coming out that first hole of the Tila. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around and we're going to add 3 seed beads that are going to connect in the 11-0s to that first hole of the Tila. So we're not yet going to the second hole of that Tila. I'm coming out here on that first hole. I'm going to go to the next one, also to the first hole, and go through. Going around just because we're doing a set of 7 on this size, you're going to do this, once again, 7 times. Going through, adding that one in there, giving that tight little pull, and pulling that thread out. I have a little thread in there I'm going to pull out so you don't see it. And I'm going to continue on my way. Adding 3, sewing through the first hole of this second Tila that you put on. So go ahead around and do that 7 times, connecting that first hole before we progress to the second hole. Once you're finished with the row of 3, connecting that first hole of the second Tila, we're going to step up. So I'm coming out of the first hole of that Tila, I'm going to go into the second hole of the Tila, stepping up, giving a little tight pull on my thread, and now we're going to pick up our 15s. In the example piece, I used 2 11s, 1 2mm crystal, and 2 11s for this wintry blue pendant. Instead, just to keep it very simple, I'm going to use 1 15, followed by 3 11s, followed by 1 15, and sew into the second hole of the next Tila in line. Again, keeping it very simple. You can do different patterns on the exterior or that last row. If you wanted it to go out even more with that sun shape or that sun look, you could also combine and do another square stitch Tila on as well. So there's lots of options to create the design or to change it up to make it what you want it. Going around the outer edge here, continuing on 7 times, putting in those seed beads on the outer edge. So just like the interior of the pendant, I'm going to take my needle and thread and I am going to reinforce the outer edge and just go back through that one more time again. If you want to, you can add in some extra little bling around the outer side, putting some 15s above or below, and just like I said, kind of making it your own. So I'm going to take my thread and needle the whole way back through that outer edge, and then we're going to get ready to add a bail for this to hang down on my necklace. Now, whether or not you want to add the bail in a square stitch style, adding in and making it with 4 Tilas, you can do so like I did the sample piece, or you can do it with a wire guard or a jump ring and just a nice little simple addition. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of one of my sets of 3 seed beads in order to add in my bail. So I'm going to exit through some 3 seed beads there. And in the sample piece, again, what I did was square stitch coming out of that top of a Tila, square stitched on 1, 2, 3 more Tilas, and then connected it back to the base of that front Tila, and that left me with about a 4mm hole in there. This one here, I'm going to just do a wire guard and a jump ring so it can hang down on a chain in that fashion rather than the Tila being the focus. So coming out through those 3 seed beads, I added onto my thread and needle 1 15, 1 11, went up through a brass wire guard, down through the brass wire guard, added 11 and a 15, and went back through those 3 11-0 seed beads. I'm going to, just like we did around the outer edge, same deal, we're going to reinforce this, because anywhere at a place that there's tension, at the clasps, at the point where you're holding in that Rivoli in the center, in the back, it's always a great idea to add more than 1 layer of thread. Once I have this done 2 times or so, I'm going to come back through those 3 seed beads, go back to the next section of my Tila, step down into that Tila, step down into the next Tila, pull my needle just through the back. All I'm doing is stepping down. So I'm not sewing through anything, I'm just pulling that needle to the back. I'm going to then step down into that center row or that center ring. And then I'm going to reinforce one more time around through those Tilas, 11-0 Tila in the center here. And then the very last step is super simple. We're just going to go in and we're going to tie the 2 thread ends together. The starter thread as well as this ending thread. So again, just around and around to go. And I'm going to have to make a set of earrings just with that simple design as well to match. Going in here then, once those 2 thread ends meet, very simply take your thread ends, tie the 2 together, right over left, left over right. Take your thread burner, burn the thread ends, and this is an ever so simple, easy bail. And a lot of people have a couple leftover Tilas, whether or not you got a Tila bracelet kit or you've been on the Tila stretch bracelet bandwagon. You probably have some extra Tilas. You can make a little nice pendant to match. So after I completed the pendant, I jumped over to a pair of earrings, showing you again how simple it is if you just want to stop at that first layer of Tilas. Here are two other options for you if you want to. After doing that center line there, I can pull that thread nice and tight, go around one more time, and I have that simple bezel done. Or if you want to, you can add 3 15-0s between each of the 11-0s in the center. So I'm just going through, coming out through that last 11-0 that I added, grabbing 3 15s, and going to that next 11-0. After I'm done that, if I want to finish with this most simple bezel, just coming out through those 2 seed beads, do like we did here, going out through the 2 seed beads, add a 15, a wire guard, a 15, come back through those 2 11s, circle up, and tie off the thread in the back to make a cute little pair of earrings, either to match or honestly, this bronze color is great. It'll look great with a bunch of different Rivolis. If you happen to have a ton of 14s sitting around and some Tilas, this is a great project for you. Thanks so much for joining me in creating these simple bezeled Tila Rivolis. Remember, if you're doing it as a necklace, as a pendant, as a set of earrings, as a full ring, so many different uses for this design. If you need any Rivolis, Tilas, or sea beads, remember you can always look below the video in the description to get links to shop with us online. Don't forget, if you do take this simple steps and do it around a bigger or a smaller Rivoli, share in the comments the different count of original Tilas that you use. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and stay tuned for the next inspirational video.